Hello, this is week 6, February 11th, 2018. Just a bit of an outlook on how the last week went and what sort of levels I'm looking ahead for the current week. Last week was a bit of an interesting one in terms of markets. Dow ended up falling about 7.5% from its high to its low. Most sort of volatile day it's had for quite a while. It did rally back on Friday and end up only about 4.5% down. So you see across a lot of the US dollar pairs, US dollar rallied quite significantly, although the yen strengthened a little bit further. In terms of my main trades that I had last week, main trade I put on was the Euro Great British Pound, which is one I said I was watching. So we go to this one. We were watching that around on that day, and we're looking for a pullback to that level. It did pull back to that level. I got in. Unfortunately, it was stopped out at the point. It sort of pushed through that level, but as you can see, it's been quite volatile. It's then since fallen back down and sharply back up. So I had a loss on that one, and I'm probably going to sit aside this pair for the week. I can't really determine which way it wants to go. Sort of probably a little bit more bullish than before, although zooming out a little bit further on the daily, it is still, that downtrend is sort of still holding, and my bias is sort of slightly there, but probably not much. Another trade which I did also initiate this week, unfortunately wasn't filled, was the Euro daily. I ended up putting in a pending fill order up here about this level, just off the back of a rally back up to this prior resistance, and sort of expecting a pullback to that 152 area. Unfortunately missed the fill. Look on the 4-hour chart, missed the fill by about 4 pips off that one, so that was a little bit unfortunate, but we'll see how that one plays out this week. Looking ahead for this week, a lot of the Aussie pairs, or again just on the US dollars, they sold off a lot more aggressively than what I was expecting. I was expecting this sort of 87.40 level to hold a little bit more on the Aussie. It's fallen through quite dramatically. It has found a bit of support there around that 84.35 on the Aussie yen, but it's definitely turned into more of a bearish case, and level I'll be watching on that one this week is probably around that 86. If we get a nice sort of context and development around there, may look to get short and play that back to that level. Same thing with the Aussie dollar. Similar thing, I was sort of expecting that 78 level to hold a little bit better than what it did. It did sort of have a little bit of support there, but it's fallen through, and I'll be playing that very similar to the Aussie yen. British pounds, one we already touched on my stance on that. I failed trade on that last week. Euro, again, sort of similar to a lot of the Aussies. I was expecting that sort of level, that 123 level to fail. It's sort of fallen through that, and we're sort of starting to see those, lower lows and lower highs on the 4-hourly, as well as it's sort of fallen through that sort of last support level. So sort of see the EMA starting to cross a little bit as well. Bias is sort of starting to shift a little bit more bearish on a lot of the US dollar pairs, or continued US dollar strength into this week. Same thing with the pound. Expect the pound to perform a little bit better than the euro, just looking at the larger context of the move, certainly a little bit more bullish. And that sort of ties in with my sort of continued short bias on the euro pound as well. I sort of expect the British pound to outperform that. Probably not looking to get long on this. I'll probably stand aside on this pair this week unless we sort of get something. It's just with the sharpness that's fallen through, and it's sort of hesitation to come back up. So still expecting that to fall, although probably less severe than the euro pound. Kiwi dollar, one I'll be watching a little bit this week as well. Similar thing, definitely fallen through, definitely bearish. Be looking for sort of a pullback up to that 73 level. Test that. May look to get short onto that one. US dollar CAD was another one I did mention in my commentary last week. I was expecting a bit of a pullback to here and potentially up to this level. I was expecting this level to hold a lot more. It's again the inverse of the US dollar, continuing that to expect, although in the short term I'm sort of expecting a pullback, retest that 124.35 level, where we may potentially have a good setup for a long. The Japanese yen, similar commentary last week, if you remember, we were sort of sitting around here, was the start of last week. Was sort of hoping for a pullback to that 111 level. I did make the comment that I sort of more leaning towards a fallback rather than a test to that level immediately. Still probably the case with this one. Don't really feel confident getting along, even though we have sort of had this sort of support. It is sort of getting longer and longer. So bias is still down. I'm not tempted to take a counter trend long on this pair. Although if we do get a rally back up to that 111 with a bit of a risk off this week, we'll look to get short on that US dollar pair. Aussie CAD, again, bias is sort of pretty clearly shifted. We've got a very strong sort of 4-hour pin bar, which sort of translates into the daily there as well. Good resistance that's held off here. So similar to the Kiwi, I'll be looking to probably potentially get short there. Will be a level I'll be watching. Aussie Kiwi was one I was watching last week as well. Again, it's fallen through its support as well. Not really sure what to expect from this pair, although potentially a further fall down to 107 area this week if the Aussie continues to sell off a little bit more aggressively than the Kiwi. The Euro Aussie, again, just touched on that before. That was the one with the failed trade. This is a sort of similar pair to the British Pound Aussie and Euro Aussie. Probably one I'm potentially looking to either get short up at that level again or long. I'm happy to play that sort of both ways. Bias is sort of bullish, but in the near term, probably bearish back to retest that level. But as with everything, context will be on that and sort of timing. If I can't get short early this week up to here, I'll probably leave it alone. I'll be looking for I'll be expecting that level to eventually break through, but not before testing that 155. The British Pound, again, similar to the Euro Aussie. A nice sort of big cup here. Again, sort of similar thing. Happy to play this both ways, as with the Euro. Potentially get long off that 176 or short off that 179.80, 180 level. Just wait and see what develops once the markets open a little bit more. Gold, just for interest sake again, last week I made the commentary. I'm sort of expecting that to continue down to the $1,300 an ounce level. Has sold off, but it's still on its way. I'm sort of expecting that to continue down to that $1,300 an ounce level. We'll probably see that bounce back up to around maybe 1330 early this week, but I'm expecting to find fairly solid support around that 1300 level. So that's probably much it that I'm looking at ahead for the week. Pretty volatile week last week. Had the one failed trade and the one missed fill by a few pips, unfortunately. Yeah, it's just a very quick recap again. Ones I'm looking at really this week is probably the Kiwi dollar. Again, expecting that to sort of bounce back to here. We've fallen through that next layer of support, so my bias on that has sort of fallen away. Looking on the weekly as well, you can see it's been very sort of range bound going back as far as 16. It's sort of testing its very highs, so sort of expecting that sort of downswing to continue eventually in the longer term back down to 68 cents. And very similar with the Aussie CAD as well. Normally a range bound pair as well on the weekly. A lot more chop, very erratic in sort of both directions. That's on the weekly chart. Daily, again, if I can get short up here, I'll be happy to take that punt. See how that goes. And then the Euro Aussie and the Pound Aussie, again, happy to play that both ways between those support and resistance levels there on the daily that I've marked in blue. So for the Euro Aussie and the Pound Aussie, yeah, happy to play them both ways. Yeah, that's probably pretty much it. Again, yeah, Japanese yen, dollar. Sort of not really expecting it to test this 111 level, but if it does happen to rally back up to there, I'll look to get short. But we'll see how that goes. I'm not happy to get long off this level. Bias is definitely down on this one, and not too happy to get long. It's been fairly bit of a vague support zone through there. So anyway, that's how it is, and we'll touch back in next week with hopefully a little bit more success than we had last week. Yeah, we'll see how it looks.